Hi. So great to be here. We're going to be talking about intuitive business mastery to elevate peak performance and let your business guide you through challenges. Now, this kind of approach to business coaching is something I've been doing for about 10 years. And like I said before, having this conversation with body talkers is really exciting for me because you already get it. I don't have to convince you that your business has its own, consciousness system, its own set of resources. But hopefully after today, you'll start relating to that in a way that sort of opens up possibilities for you to have your business working for you and actually be able to use your intuitive gifts to guide you through times of growth and uncertainty in new ways. So Robin already introduced me. Thanks for that. I'm a PCC certified coach with the International Coaching Federation and a certified health and peak performance coach. And I've been doing this kind of work for a really long time and love the intersection of wellness and business. How do you get your sense of life purpose, your sense of your passion and your gifts into a form that meets what the world needs and brings your gifts alive and supports your sense of wellness within yourself and also in your business? I especially work with people who are experiencing burnout. They're feeling stuck. They think they're doing all the right things. And for some reason, they're just not getting the results they expect, or maybe even going backwards. So, experiencing burnout and learning how to move into those places and be curious about it, and how to work with subtle energy, intuition, and develop business intuition to break out of that and start to approach getting your life set up in a way that supports your wellness rather than working against it. So, what we're going to be talking about today, in all those words, intuitive business mastery to elevate peak performance and let your business guide you through challenges. Just chew on that for a second. We're going to be just looking at what is business intuition? How do you develop it? What does it even mean to elevate what I call personal peak performance? So, we're going to talk about peak performance versus personal peak performance, and then how to then use those understandings to start to relate to challenges as opportunities for growth and innovation. So we're all familiar here that with this concept of intuition. Before being a body talker, my background is in psychology. I was a researcher in cognitive psychology and something called psychophysics, which is a science of measuring what's happening in the unconscious, subconscious processes, or what they call precognitive processing, to understand the neural networks of the mind. So I worked with auditory perception, visual perception, and this is way before I got into this work, and was really cool to realize once I got into this work that I was studying intuition back then. We just didn't call it that. We called it precognitive processing, which means that it is processing that's happening, but it's happening so fast, our conscious mind isn't aware of it. We just get an answer. And so in my studies, what we came to learn was that people think they're guessing. We give them, some kind of impossible tasks that they, have no idea how they're going to solve it. They think they're guessing, but there's a pattern to their guesses, and they're consistently guessing along a way that predicts the processing that's happening underneath. And so that's how we would study the mind. So this background that I have helped me have an understanding of intuition. Very much that it's the result of complex, nonlinear brain processes. We could even say just information processing that's on a complex level that's happening outside of the conscious mind. That then we get our knowing. We don't know where that knowing is coming from necessarily, but it's just coming, right? So the quality of intuition, we could say, is a byproduct of the quality of that complex nonlinear process. And in our language of body talk, we could say communication, synchronization, and balance. We're optimizing the communication systems of the body. That is helping, that those filters of the mind be stronger and clearer. and more optimal. Um, and we can use that personal intuition. I don't know about you, but over the years, I noticed in my clients coming in, their personal intuition would get stronger. So they would come in kind of having a sense of what might come up. And, when it came up, they're like, I knew it. I knew that, so that's a result of that getting better. And working with intuitive practitioners, people who are professional intuitives, I noticed that, you know, they may have good personal intuition, they may have good intuition as a practitioner using their tools. And I've worked with a lot of intuitive practitioners, not just body talkers, and uh, been a teaching assistant in certification programs and training people to use their intuitive skills for different applications. And they can be very good at their job as an intuitive. They can be very good in their own personal intuition, but maybe there's a gap there of not really understanding how to harness um, their intuition for their business. Um, and there's reasons for that, which I'm going to get into. But as body talkers, we would have what we consider expert intuition. It comes from the blend of knowledge and experience. You have your procedure and your protocol chart that helps you hone in on your expertise as a practitioner. But we're not alone. There's been a lot of research on expert intuition in different ways. In particular, there's been a lot of research on nurse intuition, and that nurses are very often very accurate in understanding what a patient's condition is before they look normal, and the nurse will say, I think we need to run these tests. I think we need to look for this, that, or the other. And their accuracy is uncanny, statistically significant. And they've understood that it's from their real world, real life experience. So they have the expert knowledge in that field. And then through their experiences, those blend together so that you wouldn't want to call a nurse and ask them, is this the guy that I want to date? In general intuitive sense, but specific to their career, they are highly accurate. So this is what we see with business. So people who are in business, they're blending their training, their real life data that's coming in from their particular type of business, and blending it through these intuitive pathways and the feedback loops to get very accurate information for decision making in times of uncertainty. So it is the performance edge in business. And this is something that when I was doing my own studies, market research, and learning more about business intuition and developing my work, coming from this world, where it's a little bit fringe and a little bit woo, to your mainstream people, that there's a lot of this is kind of in the lingo, this is in the language. And it's interesting because a lot of people who are using this don't want to tell you. They want to keep it their little secret. So I interviewed in my market research, I had a colleague who was president of the world's largest gaming software company, was seminal in developing AI technology, and is often serving in advisory panels in Washington on technology and growth. And so I started asking him about this stuff, and he said, "Oh no, we don't rely on intuition. We totally rely on data." Um, so they wouldn't admit it in a regular conversation, but it's highly studied, and intuition is the cutting edge. CEOs in this Harvard Business Review study, CEOs who consistently relied on intuitive insights were more likely to achieve significant business growth. And it is something that's studied. Columbia Business School, is calling it quantitative intuition. It is decision making under uncertainty. The market is doing something that's unpredictable. We're in uncertain times. And so relying on the tried and true practices is not going to get you where you need to go. So the people who have kind of dug in and really put the work in to develop it, that's when they're making these critical decisions purely based on intuition and surviving and thriving. So it basically allows gaps in data to be filled with nuanced understanding. It makes it an indispensable asset in fast-paced or uncertain situations. Now, For us, we're conscious entrepreneurs. I think that's the landscape of a conscious entrepreneur. We don't have established business models. We are entrepreneurs developing something and evolving something. And so I think this is sort of the crux of where we are is we're constantly making decisions in uncertainty. Would you agree with that? You can just pipe in the chat there if you agree with that. If that resonates for you as kind of a key component of maybe some of the challenges that you face is that there are no existing business models that really fully cater to what we do and our unique needs of ourselves, the work we do, and the clients that we bring. Yes, agree totally. Yeah. So I don't know, for me, learning this was very validating. I'm not making this up. Even as a body talk practitioner who completely believes in the work, as it evolves and grows, and I was kind of getting this pull to work more with business intuition. And I'm going to describe to you the methods that I use because we have a lot of tools in our wheelhouse already. And I presented on that in the instructors conference. But I got pulled to dig deeper and go further and evolve. And as I got deeper in, it started to question: am I just making this up? Is this crazy? And learning about this just helped me kind of lean in a little bit more and explore. So there's some pretty good research on how you develop it. And I thought it was really interesting when I was doing my research that our tools are the right tools. You know, they didn't necessarily cite Body Talk and Mindscape, but they would say energy healing, um, and alchemy, Reiki, anything like that, that, you know, is going to help kind of clear interferences, clear those mental patterns, attune them, help balance your emotions is going to help create those clearer channels. And mindfulness, meditation, those are helping create neuroplasticity. The brain is changing. We're creating the circumstances under which all those preconceived, preconditioned pathways are able to change. Um, and as you're developing intuition, it's important to remember that it's not infallible, it's a tool. So rather than relating to intuition as a crystal ball, as a predictive measure, you can use it as a way of gauging, like I said in the other slide, the quality of the intuition is reflective of the quality of those filters. So if you get an intuitive insight and you act on it, what's the result? How do I lean into that and practice mindfulness, meditation, energy healing to clarify those channels so that the intuitive insights that I'm getting match the results that I want, or maybe help open up pathways of results that I hadn't thought of before. So in that, you kind of have this dynamic relationship of taking action and reflection. And every decision that you make is going to strengthen your intuition. It's rather than the outcome of the decision, it's more of um, it's target practice. I'm aiming for something, and how close did I get? And then I'm going to go back and recalibrate and update. So the more you listen and take action and assess the outcomes, that those are the things that actually strengthen your intuitive abilities for business. And so how does this connect to peak performance and navigating through challenges? So strengthening business intuition is a worthy investment as a tool that can help you navigate through places where you feel stuck, where you feel plateaued, or that you're experiencing uncertainty. And what I found was the number one place where people were getting stuck is in cultivating sustainable growth. So when I started working with peak performance and I started talking with people about peak performance, people honestly and vulnerably would say, that terrifies me. What terrifies you about peak performance? Because you think about peak performance, what images are conjured up for you? I'd love for you to just pop in the chat. When you think about peak performance, what comes to mind? Exhausting, 100%. This is 100% what people said to me. There were it's like I think it conjures thriving, overwhelmed. Yeah, to me, across the board, um, I think it's a little bit of both. There's this feeling of that would be amazing, right? It would be amazing. It's a nice idea to be in that place, but you can't run a marathon every day. You can't run a marathon all day every day. I think associate peak performance with those peak states, right? Of achievement. And so yeah, this results in good balance, I think is a nice kind of middle ground here where we're going to start talking in the next slide about personal peak performance. But a lot of people said, it's not a fear of failure, it's a fear of success. If I get everything that I imagine, if I'm at that place that I imagine I could be, how am I going to support that? How am I going to be able to show up every day at that level? It can feel really daunting. It can even maybe trigger a shutdown of like, oh, I can't even go there. I can't even think, right? Um, and so reframing it to understanding that it's, progress, not perfection. And we're talking about sustainable growth so that every step along the way is helping you thrive at every level while you're growing too, kind of is a game changer. So you're not showing, people don't just show up and run the marathon, right? They're in a training process and they're getting getting acclimated to that, right? And so when it comes to peak performance in business, you're not saying yes to everything. You're not in your reaction mode. You're not just thinking about the short term, but it's understanding where you want to be in the long term and balancing that immediate place that you are now with that long-term vision, and along the way being able to make decisions that align with your strengths and core values. And a lot of times we don't know what those are. Sometimes we want what we think we want, but we haven't really evaluated those things and unpacked them enough to find that resonance. And I what I found is that intuitive practitioners can struggle with business intuition for a couple of key reasons. Um, I think the key one is the fear of success. When we're working intuitively, um, I was working with a colleague this morning, and we were talking about my work, and she said, "You have to show up every moment of your job as a whole person. You're actively listening. You're completely present with the person, right?" And I think that's true of the kind of work that we do. And when you think about that, like if I'm going to have an 8-hour work day, I've got to be completely present with each person for 8 hours, 5 days a week. If we're working with traditional business models, it's like, oh my gosh, no way. And so that just feels unsustainable. So I think that's the first thing. And then what I also noticed was that people could really access intuition personally or professionally, but when it came to running the business, it was sort of like, okay, that's time to be a muggle. That's flatland. If you're familiar with the Harry Potter terms, it's like that's Flatlandville. You've got to just establish, whatever the current business trends are, business models, you've got to adopt those and kind of stuff yourself in there, or feel like that just doesn't apply to me and kind of check out. And so, excuse me, what I started to work with people on was learning how to use your gifts, your tools as intuitive practitioners with your business, bringing those in and running your business intuitively. Um, but understanding that business intuition is a different kind of intuition than maybe what you're using in your sessions. Um, and then last but not least, and I think really kind of the biggest factor is when as intuitive practitioners, because we're solopreneurs, because we're conscious entrepreneurs, because we don't fit in typically into those traditional business models, we can see ourselves as our business. Um, and if you understand that your business has its own separate, is its own separate consciousness system with its own resources, um, if you over identify, now you've got two energy systems kind of glommed together, which can kind of clog the information processing and slow it down. And learning how to work with them separately actually frees up the two systems and reduces stress. So, a big block is I am my business. And so now my personal intuition, my professional intuition, and my business intuition are all kind of fighting against one another for information processing. Can you all relate to that? Is that resonating at all? Is maybe speaking to and in the direction of maybe some challenges that you might have felt in the past or currently feel with growth and alignment in your practice? Yes. Yes. So when we start understanding, okay, my business is its own separate consciousness system. In a universe that's conscious, I have consciousness, my business has consciousness, and that consciousness is separate from me. Right? That can be for me it was a big game changer. And then how do I through that insight you know, start to work with that in a way that get things working with me. So um the first piece was understanding my business already exists as a separate consciousness system. I think we all know that here. As practitioners, you may get that as body talkers, you understand that already, and then it was already existed, and that it's operating on the unconscious filters and those accumulated compensation patterns that were there before you started your body talk practice. And you know, I my first job was at Walmart as a cashier, and when I started working with this methodology, I realized that that was a filter in my business. That was a filter, you know, through the consciousness system of my business. And how could I attune those filters to align more with where I was now as a consciousness based practitioner? And how do I, you know, use the tools that I have to free up some of the stuff that was there before? Um, and that may be familiar to you all if you've taken Mod 9 or you know, Mindscape has some, you know, applications for business. You're probably already exploring that on some level. And what I started to work with was I have a peak state that's like my perfect, you know, performance for me. Somebody said it like alignment, balance, you know, um, you know, what is that? I don't know. It's outside of me. I'm feeling challenged. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling burned out. I'm feeling overwhelmed. But somewhere, somehow, some way, there's a state out there that's working for me. And it's mirrored in my business. My business is supporting me. So, what I started to do was work with that as an organizing principle within myself and in my business. So, when your business is attuned, now the filters they know how to organize. They're organizing around that. What are the priorities? How do we optimize communication, synchronization, and balance to that? Now it knows what to do. And that makes the unwinding a little easier. And if I've got that operating in me and I've got that operating in my business, now I've got two separate energy systems that are entrained. And that can really free up the flow and accelerate the process. So it can help create aligned circumstances and outcomes that get your business working for you. It's this idea that your business wants you to be at your best because that's when you can have the most impact. That's when you can show up and really be in your flow and be in your inner genius, right? And so then the things that you have to do are not just your SMART goals. SMART goals are so important, so powerful. Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and in a time frame. But now we're working with alchemy. We're transforming those existing patterns. Every action that you're taking that is aligned with this unwinding is a part of becoming the version of you that can sustain those outcomes with ease. So when I started working this way, it really changed up the game. What do you think? How would that feel to have some process that would kind of open that up for you, where it would be easier to step into and maybe even discover new pathways to growth or ways to approach your practice that would just make it supportive to you as part of your health priorities, you know, and achieving that state of harmony and balance. So you've got your business as its own separate energy system, and it's becomes kind of a guiding force, like a North Star. And because it's a separate energy system and it's a consciousness system full of resources that are related to your business. And when I say business, you know, maybe body talk is a part of what you do. I know a lot of you do other things, you're artists, and maybe you also have other goals. So, how do all the different parts and pieces work together synergistically to support those greater outcomes? You're no longer carrying two energy systems in one or more, again, if you're doing other things. Yeah, Irma's saying, I like the thought, the potential of the business is already existing and alive, and I'm just maneuvering towards or with it. 100%. It really, this idea we have to work hard for our business. I mean, I 100% bought into this. I mean, I feel like this awareness was such a gift for me because I'm a doer, I'm an overgiver. I put my needs last kind of a person. And when, it's like my business kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, girl, we need to be doing this differently. We need to sit down and have a talk. Like, let me help you. You think you're doing all the right things, and that's awesome, but we can do it better. And let me show you how. Yeah. And and yeah, Anna's saying I do different modalities and not all are thriving. And so it's like, how do you create that synergy where everything's working together? Right? And everything is a part of that place where you're at your best and your work is at its best. And how does that all fit together? It might be kind of beyond what you can imagine, or else you might have already figured it out. And so when you turn this over to the synergistic relationship, it really helps unlock a new possibility. And Jolene's asking, can you explain the difference between professional and business intuition? 100%. Yeah. Hang on to that. I'm going to finish this slide and then I'm going to talk about it because it's really important. Um, so you've got a separate consciousness system full of resources. Now it's working separately from you. You're able to feel separate, and now they're both entrained with this sort of frequency. I call it a frequency of that peak state. And it's your personal peak performance. It's what's the version of you in that peak state. So I had a client who had a really successful career, got an autoimmune disease, lost her job, and no matter what she did, it's like she would start feeling better and feeling better, and then she'd try to go back to work and she gets sick again. It's like I can be better, but I can't be better and go back to that work. So sometimes it's a matter of, well, what's the livelihood? What's the career? Like, what's the format here of making a living that supports me? It's work that doesn't trigger my autoimmune. It's maybe work that brings in revenue and opportunities for me to live a lifestyle that supports me freedom from those symptoms and patterns. So that's how having two different systems that are entrained to your personal peak performance can really accelerate and increase your outcomes. And it helps to transform detrimental energy that might be leading to burnout into constructive energy that's leading to more of a sense of freedom. And it helps clear interferences to your clarity of intuition and can help attune all the energy to a new state that supports greater clarity, purpose, and ease of stepping into outcomes that might have felt unattainable, that might have felt like that's a nice idea, but that's going to be exhausting. So it is functioning like a guiding force that kind of leads you in the direction of that fulfillment. You're discovering, what is my personal peak performance. I did too much. I'm a doer. And, my process taught me to do less. And it was a game changer when I realized doing less is helping me increase my results, in a lot of different ways. So Jolene is asking to explain the difference between professional and business intuition, and they're completely related. So professional intuition, there was the research on nurses that said, through their training, academic training and expertise and knowledge of their field, combined with their real world experience, that they kind of developed a felt sense that was specific to their career, so that people would come in and they wouldn't be presenting with any symptoms or maybe confusing symptoms. And the nurses were very accurate at predicting what was going on with the person. So they would say, I don't know why, but we need to run these tests. And then they would run the tests. And lo and behold, whatever the nurse thought it was more likely than not actually what was going on. And so this has been a well-studied phenomenon in nurses. And I think we have that same kind of training as body talkers because we're speaking the language of health, the the procedure and the protocol chart is there to help, um, you could come in as a layperson, you don't know anything about the body, but that is built into your procedure and protocol chart, those filters. So we're talking about intuition. The quality of intuition is a reflection of those feedback loops between the unconscious and the conscious mind. So when they studied intuition, and specifically business intuition, they did fMRI studies, and the insula would light up, which is the part of the brain that is a somaticizer. It's sort of like when it's sort of the person is getting into an energetic state. And it would communicate with the colostrum, and the colostrum is the part of the brain that's synthesizing. So it reaches down into the different sections of the brain that are processing. It's called multiple parallel processing. So it takes information and sends it out to different parts of the brain. And then the colostrum sort of collects that information, and computes it and kind of gives a result. And so that's 100% just intuition from a neuroscience point of view. And what we do with our procedure and protocol chart is that we're mirroring that healthy filter, so that those filters, that of distribution of information are optimized, so that the conclusions and the um, outcomes are not operating on old paradigms or faulty information, right? So that's what we do. And so um, our expert intuition as practitioners is, how well do we understand the procedure and the protocol chart? And guess what? If you're doing it on day one, even if you've memorized that chart and got 100 on your exam, um, the quality of that is going to be different than after 5 years or 10 years of doing, many, many sessions a week, right? Somebody comes in and you're no longer yes knowing, and you still have a sense of it. I mean, you might check it, but you probably have a sense of where it is, and also the client does, right? Because their intuition is getting stronger. So nurses are a great example of that's just their real life experience. So their intuition is specific to their career. Our intuition is specific to our career as body talkers. And then you see that with people in business. Now, and it's specific to whatever business that person has, right? So the the area of business that they studied were CEOs, who were making executive decisions. And so the ones who had really solid understanding of the data and a lot of experience, um, plus intuition, decision making under uncertainty, because those filters are attuned and they've been practicing and their intuition is strong, they're able to make really great decisions on a short notice under times of uncertainty and increase their performance. Yeah, Ellen's asking about those articles. I have to research. I do have those citations. I can probably get those for you. I don't have them on me at the moment, but I can certainly get those out and send those out. Um, Jolene, did that answer your question? The difference between professional and business intuition? It's a great question, and it's really worth understanding. So when we look at it applied here, and we understand that because we're energy practitioners, right? And so when you understand the business is its own separate energy system, hey, optimizing the filters there and optimizing the filters here, now we're working together and trained toward outcomes that are maybe greater than if I was carrying that all in my body. Yeah. So yeah, peak performance is personal. When you're at your best, your business thrives, and vice versa. You can be thriving through growth and challenges. The experience of challenge can be fun and feel like play when you're working this way. It doesn't feel so heavy. And embodying visibility and success can happen in a way that feels authentic to you. And then success doesn't have to look a certain way. It's unique, specific to you. And that really takes some of the pressure off of competition, or sort of being like, oh, well, I'm running my business in a way that's different than someone else who's in the same field. you know, that's okay. They're doing it the way they need to do it, and I can trust that this is right for me. And I'm mentioning three different intuition systems. It's three different ways of understanding intuition. So personal intuition, and that's just the filters of the mind. Professional intuition, which is intuition that you've developed specific to your area of expertise. And then one kind of professional intuition is business intuition. So as business owners, we can attune our business intuition. And I think as body talkers, it's really important to clarify that because we might have personal intuition that comes from our own work on ourselves that's getting stronger. Then we might have our professional intuition in our practice with our clients, and that can be different than the intuition we're operating under when we're running our business. And again, we're working with, instead of just having like to-do lists and checklists, everything that you're doing is sort of transforming the energy and attuning it. And it helps you work with finding those healthy beliefs, releasing limiting beliefs, unwinding, patterns that are not optimal. And that can be, because our business is like a social neuron. It's sort of carrying the collective consciousness beliefs as well. It may not be our limiting beliefs, but how does that all work synergistically so that, we're connecting with the structures and the language and the representation that's really connecting with our right audience and helping unlock unlock performance. Yeah. Again, it's going to help you with innovation and insight during times of uncertainty. Again, we operate under uncertainty all the time, but even so, there can be times where there's more uncertainty. I was working in my group coaching program. I was working with the people in my program. We started in October of 2019, and then COVID hit with the lockdown in March of 2020. And people were using this process to navigate all the uncertainty and thrive during a time where a lot of people were really experiencing a lot of adversity. It was really cool to see. And it just helps transform your current patterns into vitality and resilience and move from competition to interdependence. So you start to lose a sense of comparison. What my business needs to look like and the form that it needs to take can be unique to me because I'm unique. I have something special to offer, and the way it needs to structure so that I can be at my best and do my best work is going to be different than somebody else. And through the years, I've worked with a lot of body talkers with this work, and just some applications that I've seen that really support resilience and sustainable growth is, in particular, just unburdening. I think this is true of anybody who's in the health and wellness profession. We're carers, we're caregivers, we're caring people, we're empathetic, and the ability to work with your business as a place to create a healthy separation and unburden from some of the things that we take on, or have a place for that to go, can really increase your sense of vitality and resilience. So, when you over identify with your business or take it on, that can slow down your processing. And when you work with it separately, you've got those two different states, like I said. It can help support better energetic boundaries. I've heard stories and I've experienced it myself where you kind of wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I'm doing a session on someone, or a client will say, I had a dream you were doing a session on me, and things like that. And um, it can start to feel like you're never off the clock. You never really have a sense of separation. And so working this way, I found really helps support that. I work with office hours open, office hours closed in my virtual energetic business, and that really helps people um, find the right place to go to book in. It helps create a sense of separation of my personal time and my professional time. And the result of that has been higher quality work, higher quality sessions, more impact, and more outcome. I mean, for me, no matter what I'm doing, that's my value is I judge my success by the outcomes that I get for my clients, and the quality of the work. And I'm like, whatever I need to do to create that, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to organize myself. And this has really helped that. Um, as conscious entrepreneurs, we are not profit driven, but you know, business is business. How do you align with money as a resource and financial outcomes that align with vitality for the impact that you want to create, whether that's with body talk or any of the other things that you do? How do you get that working for you? And I know for me, I had zero interest in the financial gains, um, profit driven types of motivations. But what I learned was that when my business is profitable, there's more resources for me to utilize for the growth and the impact that I wanted to create. And it taught me that. My business taught me that using this process. So, beyond your numbers and strategies, is what's that look like that's a reflection of the values, purpose, and vision that I have. As practitioners and healthcare people, we forget to include our own needs, and this process can support you. You don't have to consciously shift all of that. We're going to have our habits and patterns, but the process can support you getting your needs met as part of the formula for success. That is a part of it. It is a priority and can help illuminate blind spots you might have in your own process. And again, like I said, in the collective, it's not always us. We're consciousness based people, practitioners. We're innovators and we're pioneers, and the world can feel sometimes really slow. And what I found is working with this can help bridge that gap without having to take it on or wrestle with it or relate to it as a conflict. And it helps redefine success in terms of your personal peak performance and resilience through times of uncertainty. So when you think about that for yourself, what does achieving your personal best look like to you? Do you have a sense of that? How would reaching your personal peak performance transform your life, your career, your business? What could success look like to you on your own terms? You can pop that in the chat if you want. What comes up for you? Sometimes people will say, well, I'm really happy. It's like, yeah, awesome. And, you know, how could you use this to accelerate that, to lean into that and create more expansion into that space that you're inhabiting? Some of the things that people will say is they just feel like they wake up clearer and aligned. They just feel clear about what they need to do. They're able to use their tools for it. They feel like they're letting go of overwork patterns. They feel aligned in their business or career with their values. There's less running around and doing what this person or that person is doing. You see somebody succeeding and you're like, oh, well, I have to copy that. Or empty self-care routines that are maybe great for them, but not right for you. It really helps support that, your ability to prioritize your well-being, your creativity and your balance. You're using your intuition, right, that you already have to create sustainable success. And it helps you face uncertainty with confidence, helping your obstacles be opportunities, creating that healthy separation that prevents burnout and helps you support sustainable business without forcing it into outdated models or forcing it to have to look a certain way. What your business might look like might grow and evolve over time, and this can help support that, especially during times of transition with greater ease. Yeah, Robin, time and money. Yeah, absolutely. And you think about how many times that we deny ourselves those things because we think it's just not possible. And what I found with this process is you start to be able to say, well, help me figure it out. My business can help me figure that out. We can have that conversation. Um, So if you feel stuck, if you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or just in certain areas, right? You might be great in a lot of areas, and then there's certain areas where you're just unsure, change is possible. And the process that I've described, been using with clients for 10 years. It's helped people go from zero to hero in the metaphorical sense of being able to step into a place that they thought was just beyond their wildest dreams. It's a real passion of mine to work this way. And I really appreciate you all bending an ear and listening and for interacting and sharing. Thank you. If you visit my web, bodyattune.com, is all the different ways you could possibly work with me. I do a business coaching program. I do group coaching, and I also do personal coaching where I kind of take you through these steps. So it is a little bit of it's great to have somebody around guiding you and coaching you through and helping you feel like you're getting some mastery and impact that you want to create, and understanding the tools. And so it's great to do it with groups of people because you can kind of see how it's working with other people, and get in touch with that as well.
And do you have an upcoming program? Do you have anything that's coming up?
Yeah, the peak performance program for business conscious entrepreneurs is ongoing, so you can join anytime. I do have a webinar coming up. Like if you're curious, want to dip your toe in and just understand a little bit more, I do have a free webinar coming up first week of March. If you go to that landing page, you can sign up for it there. There's also like a free guide that's just kind of like practical, because we're talking about, you know, how to change the filters. And there's a million and one ways, but in the free guide on there is just some really practical ways that you can do it, that are neuroscience
Said.
based.
Want to thank everybody so much for being here, for sharing your energy and your vibe. I really, really believe that it is people like us. This is why I do not despair for the fate of the world. Really, is people like us are on the planet, and we are bringing our gifts. And by coming to something like this event today, you're committing to yourself and your practice and our matrix as a whole. So I really appreciate everyone being here. Huge thank you to Shelley. That was really great. You have so much information. Really appreciate you being here, and an absolute delight to get to know you. I've heard about you for years. I don't know about you guys, but Shelley's got a rep and it's a good one. So um, a joy to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Love sharing this information, love supporting Body Talk, and I really hope this helps.